This is Dianne Andrews in black and white. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Hello, I'm Dianne Andrews, your host of Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Thanks for being with us today. Thank you out in the audience, thank you in TV land, and thanks in YouTube. As you know, we're the largest issue show in the state of Louisiana. We're 2 times in Shreveport and Alexandria, Lafayette, and New Orleans. We're about 4 times a week in the city of Baton Rouge, where we're headquartered. But what I like to tell everybody, we're headquartered here, I have a studio here, but we interview people from all over the world. Today, I'm very happy to have, we're doing immigration. I did Immigration Cuba. You can watch that out on YouTube. I had Ricky Rodriguez, who's from Cuba. He was 20 when he came here, and he wasn't so fond of what the embargo being lifted in Cuba as to what happened with his family, because they confiscate everything, and it's still a communist country that you can't own anything. And his grandfather owned a store, I think, and they couldn't own anything. You can't own a house, you couldn't own anything. But we'll see what happens over time with the country of Cuba. And Guantanamo Bay, we won in a treaty. So Guantanamo Bay is really the property of the United States right now. But now we're doing, and I've been trying to do Immigration Cuba for I've been doing the show about 1.5 years. I think I've been trying to do Immigration Mexico for about 1 year. And everybody I asked was illegal in the city of Baton Rouge and other places, except Texas. I was going to telephone someone in. But now I got lucky on the social media site LinkedIn, which I love LinkedIn. I found a person, Olajuwon Davis. He's coming to us from Houston, Texas, but he's from Southern University, and that's really how we got connected, to talk about the things he's doing after graduating in 2005 in criminal justice from Southern University.
That's correct.
Did you plan on being an attorney when you majored in that, or did you want to go in this field of Homeland Security that you're in, the Department of Homeland?
Initially, I went to Southern to actually become a school teacher.
Really?
And then I changed my major because I wanted to do something exciting.
Okay.
But really wanted to help the community
Yeah.
from that aspect, because you didn't see a lot of black males in law enforcement trying to actually do something different.
And he went to Struma High here, which is, I think, closed right now and supposed to reopen
ma'am.
in what they call now Ghost Town, is
Yes,
what they
ma'am.
call where
Yes,
Struma
ma'am.
was, you told me.
Right.
But he is doing something very exciting. He is currently working for ICE. A lot of people hear the words ICE, especially with this Trump, Cruz, Rubio, Clinton, Bernie Sanders talking about immigration, the political scene that's going on right now. And ICE is Immigration Customs Enforcement. A lot of people don't know what that means. It's under the Department of Homeland Security, as he was before this. He was a Customs Border Patrol agent in Laredo, Texas. Really exciting place that he decided to be in, right? But now that's why he's in Houston. But let me tell you a little bit about Olajuwon. Olajuwon, in 2004, was volunteering. He did a lot of free work helping the community. And they saw a fire going on in Gardere. And he and a friend of his went and helped people in Gardere, in an apartment complex, and they saved lives. And then in 2005, I think you joined the Department of Homeland Security, or you were working as a security. It wasn't Homeland Security then.
That was
Your
Department
first-
of Energy. Was doing some contract work. Was on the tag team with them.
Yeah.
Protecting the National Federal Art Reserve, which is over in Plaquemine, Louisiana.
Yeah.
So I got my foot in the door with that. Got a top secret clearance. So that would just help me get into
The
Border
Department of
Patrol
Homeland Security. And when they tell you, okay, we have 2,000 miles.
Right.
Audience of the border, and you're going to see a picture of that on the screen. Between our border in Mexico is 2,000 miles long. 670 of those miles do not have any fence. So that's 1330 miles that do have fence. We have 22,000 border control agents, which is what you were doing prior to this job, because you just moved to Houston last year in 2015.
Right.
And you were down there about 6 years, I guess 2009 to 2015. He was in Laredo, Texas, and he has a family.
Right.
So he took a pay cut. And sometimes I'll tell you all out there, you have to take a pay cut to get what you want to do and be where you want to be, but you have a longer path maybe to get a higher place in life.
Right.
So he's now in Houston, Texas with a family, a wife and 2 children.
Right.
And they have a lot more social life in Houston, Texas. Right. And he's with ICE, so he has a lot more path to go further in that department than he did before.
Right.
So tell me, as a security, I know that about 500,000 people are apprehended by custom border agents a year. And most of those are from Mexico.
Majority.
The majority. I think it was 338,000 were from Mexico, and 100 and some thousand were from Honduras, Latin America, even Middle East and other countries that come through Mexico to come through our border. I just did a show a couple of weeks ago, and we talked to a person, an attorney who was over the visa department in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And we talked about 15 of the 19 hijackers in 9/11 came in through Saudi Arabia, through Jeddah. They got their visas there, and 2 of them had expired. So a lot of people come here through visas, they still do the green card. You used to hear people talk about the green cards, the work cards.
The green cards are just another name, an old name for a visa.
And,
It's the same thing.
the paper was colored green is what I
Right.
read, is why they called it a green card. And so you don't really hear that card, but they still call it the green card and the green paper, I guess, in certain instances. But 500,000 people have expired their visas in America that they can't find, is
Right.
what we talked about in that last show. But let's talk about, we have illegal immigration. You have about 45,000 immigrants in America. And most of those immigrants, about 19,000 are from Latin America descent, and 45 million, and 15 million of those are pretty much from Mexico. So when you were protecting the border in Laredo, you had 56 miles of this 2,000 mile border at your station, I think you told me.
Right,
Tell me
right.
about that experience for the 5-6 years you were there.
Well, initially when I first got there, it was pretty overwhelming because going from local law enforcement to doing that type of law enforcement is totally different.
Right.
Because you're working not in the city, you're working ranch lands. They call it in South Texas called brush. Here in the city, we'll call
Brush
it
or bush?
brush.
Brush, okay.
It's the equivalent to the woods.
Yeah.
But in South Texas, they don't really have trees. It's just mesquite trees, which are roughly between 6 and 7 feet
It's close
tall.
to the desert. So
Right, it's the desert. So
deserty
it's
looking,
cactus,
Yeah.
mesquite trees, and the small bushes with,
Yeah.
with thorns and stuff
We're going
like
to show
that.
some pictures of that part of Texas up on the screen.
Right.
They'll see.
So that within itself was a new challenge because the thing is, as a Border Patrol agent, it's your job to go into that and track people and find them. So you can work a 8 to 10 hour, 12 hour, 14 hour shift, and you could come home covered in ticks, thorns. You walking
There are
through
a lot
snakes.
of scorpions in the desert
Scorpions,
too. A lot
snakes,
of scorpions, yeah.
Snakes, wild pigs. They even have mountain lions out there, bobcats, the whole nine. Excuse me, the whole nine. So that was your job. That was your office
So
every
you
day.
need a lot of survival techniques to do this job.
Well, you'll learn quick that.
Did they send you to a class to learn
Well, you go
survival?
through a Border Patrol Academy, which is depending on if you speak Spanish or not, it can last between 5 to 6 months.
Well, I was reading 79% of our immigrants speak English, but 21% don't.
Right.
Of all the immigrants in America, 21% don't speak English, but they're here in America. So a lot of the people, I'm sure, coming across the border did not speak English.
Right. So like I was saying, you go through a Border Patrol Academy.
Yeah.
They teach you, your defensive tactics, driving, how, survival skills or whatnot. And then if you didn't test out of Spanish, then you would stay additional 2 months to learn Spanish.
So you know Spanish now.
Yeah, I won't say I'm fluid, but I know.
Yeah, but you can get
Yeah,
away
I
with talking to a
can do
person.
my
You
job.
can stop them, right? What would
Right.
you say to me if I were a Spanish person coming across the border?
If I saw you, like, let me backtrack. If you out in the middle of nowhere and
Yeah.
you see somebody walking, 9 times out of 10 they're illegal.
Right.
So I can ask you like, Dianne, which is where you from. They're gonna tell me Mexico, Honduras, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Like I can hold this type of conversation, but I know because nobody's just gonna randomly walk out here with a book sack full of water and beans and all this type
Right.
of stuff just because they want to walk.
Now, I talked to one illegal. She was from Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
And she told me, I said, how was it coming across the border? She said, no problem. I said, nothing? Nobody stopped you? Nothing. She said, nothing. I just walked across, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So she must have been in part of that 670 miles, which Laredo is part of that 56 miles of that
Right.
670 that has no fence. And I know you don't think fences are going to keep people away who really want to come to change their life.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were a woman, in which I am, a woman crossing that border, it would kind of prohibit me because it's kind of. I looked at it on, and we're going to show a picture of it on the screen of the fence. It's what? How many feet is it? It's pretty high.
It depends on.
The part I saw maybe was 15 feet. Maybe
It
20
depends
feet.
on what part. Like Arizona, they might have depending if it's sitting on a ridge or whatever, it can be 15, 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
Here in Texas, you have a natural boundary, which is the Rio Grande River.
Yeah.
So just swimming across that, people do drown. But then there's certain parts of that river where it's only ankle deep.
You can
so
walk.
you can walk
It
across.
is very dangerous, and I was talking to another person who was here legally. In fact, he worked for Stanley Steamer, and he told me he's not there anymore. And I probably shouldn't have said who he worked for, but that was a long time ago. But he told me he drove a van, and he brought women across the border. He's legal here though, that were pregnant many years ago when he was young. And they came here to have their babies because Mexico is the number one legal and illegal immigrants in America. Then you have India's number 2, and China is number 3 as far as immigrants coming into America that want to come to America.
Right.
The raw numbers of people that come in. But a lot of people, as we know, if they call them, I guess, border babies, if they're born in America, the mother and the baby, I think, become legal citizens of the United States most of the time, right?
Technically, the child will be a U.S. citizen. The mother doesn't.
But they're not going to separate them.
They're not going to separate the
No.
family. So
We hear about amnesty. I guess amnesty is just a pardon. You can stay here. That's what it means. I become a citizen.
right, but
is what it means.
if you let's say you have fear of going back to your country,
Right.
the judge will have to find that what you're saying is credible
Right.
to get asylum. So if you're saying the gangs are going to kill me, if the
Right.
judge feels that they're
You can say that in Los Angeles, California.
well, but the thing is, when you try to claim asylum, that means you have political fear that the
Yeah.
government may do something to you.
But you know what I don't understand, and we're going to take a break in a minute after I say this. It's just like back in the 50s and 60s with black people. If you don't stand up for your own rights, Mexico, Bill Clinton passed the NAFTA, where a lot of manufacturing has gone down in the 1990s and still is, because again, the labor is cheaper in Mexico than it is in America. If these people don't stand up for their own rights and join together for Mexico, how's Mexico ever going to change? But think about that, and we'll talk about that when we come back in and talk about financial ramifications of reasons why that some of the Mexicans, and we keep illegal immigrants, and we kind of allow it without really allowing it. We'll be right back with Dianne Andrews in Black and White with this interesting conversation to give you some insight of why a lot of politicians, Republican, Democrat, or Socialist, will not stop illegal immigrants from coming into this country. Come on back. Thanks for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Olajuwon is going to tell us a little bit about, she just crossed over, she told me, no problem, from Honduras, and came through Mexico, which most Latin Americans and a lot of Middle Eastern and other people are coming through Mexico also because of the loosely controlled borders in some instances. Mm-hmm. So tell me, how is it so easy? Because you do have 22,000 border control people, but that's not a lot when you look at 2,000 miles.
Right. So as a former Border Patrol agent, I would tell you structurally what it is. Nationwide, you have 21,000 Border Patrol agents. Nationwide, so that's covering the northern border, southern border, and then you have Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and places like that, okay? So think about it, 21,000 for the northern border, southern border, and outlying territory.
When you say northern border, you're talking about what?
Upstate New York, all the way to...
So that includes that when I talk about those 20-plus thousand
the continental U.S.
Oh, okay.
So you got 21,000 agents nationwide. That's the northern border from the state of Washington to Vermont.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have the southern border from California.
Do you know how many are covering the southern border?
The majority of the agents are on the southern border.
Probably 70% of them, huh?
Yeah, or probably more.
80 to 90. So you don't have many with Canada because we have no problem with Canada.
Exactly.
Right.
So now the problem is, even with that many, you're talking about, let's say 80% of Border Patrol agents on the southern border.
Right.
So now you're concentrating them between California,
right, and Florida,
and Texas, pretty much, because that's where the Mexican border is.
Right.
But then you also have Border Patrol
Florida
agents from coastal Texas to coastal Florida.
Right.
And then you move on down to
And
Puerto
you
Rico.
have They do land, air, and
Right.
ground, right?
Right.
All three.
Right.
So they're out there in boats on the water in the Rio Grande
You
River.
have
You
the Border
mentioned.
Patrols and the boats, and then you have Air and Marine, which is a branch of Customs and Border Protection, which they do the flying.
So that's more people because that's not counted in your people, is it? Or
Right.
is
Well,
it?
it's not counting Border Patrol
Agents, right?
agents, but they're also Customs and Border Patrol protection agents as well,
Okay.
but they're just in a different branch.
Now you're under Homeland Security. Are they under Homeland
They
Security?
all under Homeland
Okay.
Security as well. So that's how it is. So, and then you have stations. Okay, so I was in Laredo, Texas. So Laredo, Texas
How
has
big is Laredo? How many people?
the city itself is probably on average maybe the size of Baton Rouge population
Oh, it's
wise.
that large. Okay.
But it's the people are concentrated into a smaller area. So
Not as many land miles as you would have in the city.
right,
of Baton Rouge. Not as spread out.
It's not as spread out.
Yeah.
So Laredo is really
What's it?
concentrated
90% Hispanic.
or more.
99. Okay. Well, you were one of the few black people there. Any
Yes.
white people there? Do you see
they
any
do
white
have
people?
they do have white people there,
Okay.
but it's not a significant amount.
Yeah.
So that within itself, the city is concentrated right on the Rio Grande River. The sister city is Nuevo Laredo, so it's a lot of back and forth. So the city itself, you have stations that have certain mileage coverage they have to do, and my station being 30 minutes outside of the city, covering 56 miles of river of ranch land. So there's nothing out there.
But now that you say that, Laredo is a pretty decent sized city, and population-wise, they're going to bring their friends over who are going to bring more friends over, and they're going to help them access to get in America any way they can.
Not
probably,
necessarily
right?
friends.
Not
You're talking about
family.
family.
Yeah, family, friends, whatever.
Right.
People you want to marry. Instead of getting a K-1 visa, they just come over.
Well, I'll tell you this. It's not just, it doesn't work like that where I'm going to help my family. For as like, in order to cross the river, cartels run that.
And that's drug cartels we're talking.
Drug cartels, they also control
Just the bulk of our marijuana, because I saw where you all, the CBPs you call them, Custom Border Patrol agents, are getting about 1.5 to 2 million pounds of marijuana you're apprehending or confiscating a year, and 11,000 pounds of cocaine. Nothing with heroin yet. I didn't see any statistics, but that's a lot of marijuana. So now, of course, now they can just go get it from Colorado. They're mailing it all over the country. I understand now in a lot of instances, since it's legal in Colorado. But so most of our marijuana is coming in from Mexico. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's probably a drop in the bucket. 2 million pounds of marijuana is probably a drop in the bucket.
I always tell people this.
You would
If
say
wanna
what?
know I always tell people this. If you want to know how much our Border Patrol agents, Customs agents, and all law enforcement combined catching a lot of drugs. Yes, they catch a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
But ask yourself, is there a drought in any major city?
No. So it's a drop in the bucket of what's really getting into America. And there's no way to stop it. As you were saying, some people get it having in trucks with carrots and
Right.
onions, vegetable trucks, and it's hidden under
Right.
there. How do you can't stop every mode of operation coming through this country?
Law
On that
enforcement
border.
is a reactive. We're reactive.
Not
You-
proactive.
You try to be proactive as possible, but
Yeah.
when I have a family,
Right.
right? When I go home, I'm not thinking about law enforcement.
Right.
But the person that's doing
24/7.
It's 24/7.
That's
him.
right.
You see what I'm saying?
So why do you think, and from us talking briefly before and me doing some investigation, I read one site that said, in one book that said, if we did not have illegal, not legal immigration, if we didn't have illegal immigration, that we would have a stop to the entire agricultural crops in the country of America, that it would cause us to maybe go further and deeper into a recession. Georgia did some restrictive laws, and a lot of they have 2% of illegal aliens or undocumented workers or immigrants, whatever word you want to use. They had about 2%. They stopped them coming into Georgia for a while. They controlled it more, and they said the next year half of their crops rotten because they had nobody who
Right.
would go pick it at the price they could pay, because if it gets too high, then you can't afford to sell the crops
Right.
to Americans.
Right.
So there's a financial, and I think that's when I looked at that and we talked about this, that's one of the real reasons there has to be a balance
Right.
between illegal Because if America really wanted to stop it, there would be a way to stop 80% of this, probably some kind of way.
Right.
But do we really want to stop all of it? Maybe it gets out of control, because let's talk about Kate Steinle over in San Francisco with the Kate's Law that's being bounced around in Congress now that got defeated because it's attached to other bills, I understand, where it'll never pass, where it's mandatory 5-year sentencing for people who've been sent back and they return again, then they're 5 years in our federal prisons. But that is not passed yet. Kate Steinle got killed in 2015 on the pier in San Francisco, California, by an illegal immigrant who had been deported 5 times, is what I read, for some crimes he had done.
Right.
You know what I don't understand? Why don't we send them back? We have a deal with Mexico for NAFTA. A lot of our manufacturing goes down there. We're sister countries, right? Canada, America, Mexico. I wonder why our politicians can't make a deal. When we send them back, you put them in your jail for 5 years. Why should we pay for them to be in America for 5 years? Because our average prisons cost us $45,000 to house a prisoner. He'd be living better there than he is living in Mexico.
Right.
And sometimes living on our streets here in America, it'd be easy for him. You got 3 meals a day, right?
Right.
So I don't understand, but that's a political issue that I'll have to ask the politician on this
Right.
show. Why we can't send them back to Mexico and make Mexico house their own prisoners? Maybe then Mexico would not want them to come over here so much.
That's a good question to ask a politician.
Yeah, why do you think, I mean, El Chapo, I mean, you know, look how we found him after Sean Penn did all of this interviewing of El Chapo, who now I read is going, because I'm getting ready to do a show on heroin, but I read that Mexico is now, the best heroin in the world is in Afghanistan, they say. The poppy seed, opium is the plant, or what they make is opium, and South America. I understand that Mexico is now getting training sessions from Colombia. They go down there and take lessons on how to grow and bring their plant back. You know, just like we get the seed of the Riesling grape or something to make Riesling in California, which is really from Germany.
Right.
But they're doing the same thing there. So now we're going to see more heroin coming in through Mexico, which is harder to detect, you say.
We have dogs that's trained to do it, but it's like I said, it's a poison, so therefore it's so potent that you don't need, like when you catch marijuana at the border, it's like in hay stacks.
Right.
But with heroin, you heroin and meth.
It could be in this bigger container and be a whole bunch of it, right?
Or smaller.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a little harder to detect.
But that is the #1 drug of choice in America now, and it's flooding the streets of America.
Right, but at one time it was popular in New Orleans.
Back in Nicky Barnes' day in the 70s, I've been reading up on that.
Bad.
Yeah. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was really bad. The Love Child thing with all the love fest and everything. Heroin was #1 back then.
After Vietnam, it was
right
pretty bad.
In the 70s. Yeah, it was really bad.
So I mean, most drugs are trendy.
Right.
So it's whatever the flavor.
Well, it's how they're pushing it in. You know, now you're getting it up Afghanistan, you're getting it from Colombia, and now it's going to start coming in right next door to us through Mexico.
But it's about the demand for whatever they want. So just like with crystal meth hit,
they made that right in country towns, right? I mean, crystal meth is made out of how do you make it?
Household products.
Yeah.
Cleaning products. So when that get popular, they go.
And it was something they sniff, they put in meth, because I know now with my, I take Claritin D, and to get the D now, they passed laws about 5 years ago, you have to go show your driver's license because they say people were using it for crystal meth or something, whatever's in the decongestant part of that
So it's household products, it's man-made.
Yeah.
So
that's easy to make.
Yeah.
And look at the people, or you don't want to make it, look at the teeth rotting out. I mean, you go look at the hills of Tennessee.
But I mean, you're using household cleaning products to make something.
You're making poison. You're putting poison in your body. Why do people want to do that? I don't get it. Life can't be that bad that you want to poison yourself. So tell me, what would you like to tell the public and some of the people here, since you've done so well in the last 10 years? You graduated in 2005 from Southern, and you're going on 11 years out. You've saved lives in Baton Rouge, across the river, and on the Border Patrol. You told me you never had to kill anybody. You had to raise your gun maybe a couple of times, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've been in situations where, you had to think about, like, okay.
Was it drug cartel people?
No, it was just, you know what, I would tell people this. I got into more altercations with U.S. citizens than I have with illegals.
You mean in Laredo you did?
Yeah.
With the Hispanic population there?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying, here in Baton Rouge.
Oh, here in Baton, yeah.
I got into more altercations than I did
when you were working here.
Right.
Really?
Because you gotta understand.
Well, when I'm illegal, I know I'm wrong, and here you come at me with a gun, and most of them probably aren't cartels, so they're just like me.
So just think about this. I catch a person, not a person, I catch a group. I help catch a group of 50 people that's illegal, okay? And And when I run up on them with my coworkers, of course some of them gonna run.
Now, do you all go one by one, or are you running packs? You and your patrol
Well,
guys?
it might be me. Let's say me and you tracking this group out. When I say tracking, we following the
Because you're
footprints.
communicating with them through a cell phone or through some walkie-talkie or
Right.
something?
Well, you might be right behind me.
Yeah.
With me and you walking.
Uh-huh.
And then my other coworkers might be in their vehicles a mile or two ahead.
Let me ask you this. Have you liked your journey, what you've done so far? Would you recommend this as a good job to other people?
It's a learning experience. It's definitely a learning experience. If you never had an idea of how it actually works, this is a great opportunity to learn, to be engulfed in a Hispanic culture,
Right.
to actually see immigration up close and personal, to see how it works in the court system. Is a great learning experience.
So when because we know a lot of the immigrants now have to go to court, everybody who's caught, but then they go into these privately owned detention centers. We'll talk about that in a second when we come right back with Dianne Andrews in Black and White.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Thanks for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. So Olajuwon, when you hear, the politicians talking about illegal immigration, some of this is just a farce, right?
My advice to a politician would be come down to the border, actually do the job.
You know who did? Rick Perry. He did on the border of Texas, didn't he? And so did the female governor of New Mexico, wasn't it? Or
Well, I've seen
Arizona.
politicians come down and, but to actually be on the ground and actually do the job.
Do the undercover boss thing. Come down and act like you're really a
Put your
control
boots
agent.
on.
Yeah.
Get down out the truck.
If they really want to solve the problem.
Because my thing is, in order to fix something, you have to start from the bottom and see how it works till you get to the top.
I know people do jump over the fence, but wouldn't it, like the Great Wall of China, we built a fence for 1,330 miles. Shouldn't we finish the fence to add to the other 670 miles? Wouldn't that help? Maybe
You can.
But it's $2.5 billion.
You can, and maybe they should.
Yeah.
But it's up to the local communities.
Trump says he knows how to do it. He knows how to build it, and he can do it cheaper than anybody else. He is a builder.
Hey, let him do it.
Yeah. Hey, use some illegals and give them amnesty to build it. That's what I would do. Use illegals, give them amnesty, then they become a citizen.
I leave that up to the politicians.
That'll make it cheaper, that's for sure. Anything you would like to tell to young men out here? Because I know you're a great role model for a lot of young men who are aspiring to do something in their lives. Tell them what you would like them to know.
Basically, don't be afraid to do something different. Me growing up where I did grow up, trust me, when I decided to go into law enforcement, I got the 3rd degree. But the thing is, you got to stay the course and do what you need that's going to better yourself. Because I didn't get into law enforcement to say, quote unquote, arrest people.
Yeah.
But I wanted people to see, like I started when I was 20, 21 years old. So if I'm 20, 21 years old and I see another 21-year-old, he sees me, then he can say, you know what? I can do what he's doing.
Right.
Because it took for me to go to Southern to actually see a federal agent come and speak to us. That's how I got into what I want to do, because I actually saw.
One thing what impressed me reading your resume, you did something free when you first got out of college. For 2 years, you did volunteer. So that got you into the arena to meet people and to make connections. And people need to always remember that. If you want something, go for it. Don't just look at what the dollar amount is at that time, because it may lead you to another path that you'll make much more and make a bigger impact than you ever thought you could. When you put on your resume, save lives in the burning building, that helped. See you later. And Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Come on back to us next week.